Mateo Alvarez arrived at the tech startup before the sun. He wore silence like armor, faded work boots, a fraying gray hoodie, and a janitor's badge that might as well have made him invisible. To most of the young, well-fed, fast-talking employees of OmniLink, he was just background, like the floor tiles or the vending machine hum. Every morning he mopped floors polished with disregard. He emptied bins stuffed with discarded coffee cups, foosball tournament flyers, and half-sketched UI diagrams. He watched, quietly, as engineers argued about framework libraries and design sprints in language that might as well have been another dialect. They never spoke to him, not really. Once a developer dropped a comment about the janitor trying to understand code after seeing a programming book on Mateo's cart. The chuckles echoed down the hallway. Mateo didn't flinch. He simply turned the page. What they didn't know was this. Mateo had once been a math teacher in El Salvador, but war and circumstance forced him to flee. In America, his credentials didn't translate. He worked odd jobs, farm laborer, dishwasher, warehouse picker, until he found stable work as a janitor. It paid just enough to keep his son Lucas in community college and rent paid on time. But each night after cleaning OmniLink's glossy offices, Mateo stayed late, long after the ping-pong balls had stopped bouncing. He took his dinner from a crumpled brown bag and sat in an unused conference room, the lights dimmed to avoid attention. There, he opened his laptop, an old refurbished one he bought from a pawn shop, and logged onto Free Code Camp. For 2 years he taught himself JavaScript, Python, and systems architecture. He took notes in English and Spanish. He built small projects, an app to track his shifts, a scheduling tool for Lucas's classes, even a bug tracking system he dreamed might help companies like OmniLink. But no one noticed, until they did. In Mateo's third year at OmniLink, the company hit a rough patch. Investors were growing anxious. Cuts had to be made. Non-essential staff were let go. Mateo received a short email from HR, thanking him for his service. There was no handshake, no goodbye. That night he walked home in the rain with a garbage bag full of his belongings. His hoodie soaked, his hands cold, but his mind was burning. He used his final paycheck to take a gamble. Over the next 6 months he worked odd construction gigs and coded every spare hour. He focused on a tool he'd started prototyping in secret, a lightweight DevOps automation dashboard tailored for small, fast-scaling teams, the kind of problem he'd seen firsthand at OmniLink. He called it StreamNest. It wasn't flashy, but it worked. It streamlined CI/CD workflows, integrated seamlessly with GitHub, and offered visual debugging that junior developers could understand intuitively. Word spread on forums and in Discord groups. A few indie developers signed up, then, a mid-sized firm adopted it. Mateo began earning real revenue. Within a year, StreamNest had over 300 clients. He registered an LLC. He hired 2 remote engineers, both self-taught immigrants like him. Then came the email from OmniLink. Their latest product had scaling issues. Their infrastructure was tangled. Junior developers were drowning in deployment bugs. One of their engineers suggested a tool he'd seen recommended online, StreamNest. Mateo read the message twice. He recognized the signature at the bottom, Carly Lynn, CEO. The boardroom looked the same, bright light, wall-to-wall glass, sleek chairs and cold stares. But now, Mateo wasn't holding a mop. He was wearing a navy blazer, crisp shirt, and an air of quiet confidence. He entered the meeting with his co-founder, nodded politely to the receptionist who didn't recognize him. Mateo? Mateo, yes, good to see you again. There was a moment of silence, the same kind that once greeted him every morning, but now it was weighted with recognition, not ignorance. They made their pitch. StreamNest offered everything OmniLink needed. Carly's team asked technical questions. Mateo answered them with authority. His lead engineer chimed in with deployment success stats and client retention figures. By the end of the meeting, the roles had reversed. OmniLink needed Mateo. A few weeks later, the partnership was finalized. But Mateo didn't just sign a licensing deal. He negotiated terms that required OmniLink to offer internship programs for non-traditional engineers, paid apprenticeships, free workshops on coding fundamentals. He didn't ask for revenge. He asked for change. In time, OmniLink employees came to know his story. Some were embarrassed, some were inspired, a few were both. Mateo began speaking at local boot camps, sharing how he built StreamNest from late-night learning and quiet resilience. His son Lucas eventually joined the company as a product lead. He never forgot the janitor's badge, he framed it. Not as a reminder of humiliation, but of perseverance. Mateo's story is so many other people's story. Every workplace, especially in high-tech industries, is filled with unconscious and conscious biases. We judge people based on their job title, accent, age, clothing, or education level. We assume value can only come from those with degrees or titles, forgetting that brilliance often wears humble shoes. Conscious bias is when we choose to look down on someone. Unconscious bias is when we don't even realize we've done it. Both are harmful. Both rob us of connection, of talent, and of humanity. Mateo reminds us that people are more than their roles. A janitor can be an engineer, a dropout can be a CEO, a voice in the margins can lead an industry. Respect is not earned by job titles, it is owed by default to every person, every time. Because behind every mop, every counter, every ignored smile, there might be someone dreaming, someone building, someone like Mateo. The clean start wasn't just his, it can be ours too. Are you a Mateo? Do you know a Mateo? Have you caught yourself being biased? Does Mateo's story make you aware of instances you were unconsciously biased? This may be your opportunity for a fresh start.